Good evening. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're not going to be looking at screens at all. We're just going to have a chat, me and you, guys, okay? I'm worried about you, if I'm honest. You're not eating enough? You're looking peaky? No. Every video I've done has been in the box, in the computer, looking at very specific ways of making music. And I thought there are other things when you're not sat at the laptop that help, sort of more overarching ways of making yourself more prone to making better music. So I thought I'd put that into a video, and when I started writing some of these thoughts down, I realised that some of these things are so obvious and they're actually so easy to do, but it's also easier to not do them. And I think to really consciously make an effort outside of your literal sat at the laptop producing, I think can benefit your music and can benefit your life and all sorts of stuff. So I've got a few little bullet points I've just written down, and I'm just going to expand on them and let's see where it goes. So the first thing is, to make good music, you have to listen to music, and you have to listen to a lot of music. Like subconsciously when you're listening to music, it's going in, you're getting inspiration from somewhere. And if you're not listening to music, your boundaries are never pushed in terms of what you're listening to. And you can find that you get stuck in these same habitual patterns of the kind of chords you might use, or the kind of melodies that you might write, or the kind of sounds that you use, or the rhythms. Every time you listen to music, you're listening to something that you've never heard before. It sort of opens a new horizon for your brain to think, oh, there is actually a kind of a new possibility as to what I can do with my music. And again, hopefully if you're a producer, you already are listening to a lot of music. Never mind the hustle and bustle of London. That is a siren. Let's sample it, guys, right? Sometimes we can fall out of the habit of not listening to music, and especially listen to music on either the speakers or the headphones that you use to produce, because then your ears just get used to the sound of what a reference track sounds like. And just over the hours and hours that you listen to music, you're just sort of locking in to how that should sound. And then when you're producing yourself, the inconsistencies in the mix or the levels tend to stand out more obviously when you've been listening on that same pair of headphones or speakers. And that doesn't just apply to the genre that you make. I think listening to as much as you can. I mean, honestly, whatever you like, to be fair, you don't want to be sitting there listening to music that you don't like. But if you can get as many genres as you can, then you're just going to be picking up like chord progressions and structures, especially, when you're listening to like old 70s songs, like Pink Floyd and Zeppelin and that kind of stuff. Like the structures are just so different to what we have in modern day pop music. And you can like take little bits of those structures, so you're not just stuck in the verse, chorus sort of mold that modern music has fallen into. So I think getting inspiration from all different spheres of music is going to be something that will make tiny, tiny little differences incrementally in terms of how well you can write your music and how well you can structure it. Number 2 is take a walk. This one, actually, I only discovered about 5 years ago. Walking. I just discovered it. If you take a walk just before you start producing, if you're going to make a drum and bass song, listen to drum and bass, go for a walk, and then when you come back, you've got so much energy and so much inspiration in you. I honestly can't believe how well it works. If I'm producing the first half of the day and it's not quite going so well, honestly, a 30-minute walk and you come back like it's a different day, you're like a different person. You've got energy in you, you've got breath in you, you're sort of revitalized. And I think that is really underrated and a very easy thing to do. That's one of the best techniques to making better music, because it works almost better than anything. If your brain and your body are sort of feeling good while you're making music, it's just going to be so much easier. You're not going to have to think about it. 3rd is to make producer friends and either produce with them or like share your tracks with each other. I was lucky enough when I started out that I've only ever worked with other people. So I started a little duo with one of my best mates called Sleepwalkers. And pretty much for the first 5 years of making music, I'd never made a single tune without him. And having that second pair of ears to tell you when a kick sounds terrible or the mix doesn't sound good, just having that direct feedback from someone is just going to help you get out of your own head, because it's so difficult when you're making your own music to either fall in the trap of loving it too much and getting demoitis and all that kind of thing, or fall in the trap of just hating everything and not being able to see when something is good and that you should keep persisting with it. So having that second pair of ears is so important. There's so many communities out there like Discord or Reddit. We can find like-minded people who are doing the same. And I think it's a great idea to get into a community and listen to what other people at your level are doing, being inspired by other people, seeing their success is a great inspiration. It helps give you the energy to keep going. Next, I would say try produce different genres. It's quite easy if you're making the same genre every time, especially with the drums. You tend to do the same thing, same rhythms over and over. If you just try different genres, you land on different ways of doing things, different techniques, different ways of side chaining, or having different tempos means that you have more or less space for your melodies to fit in. Because with something like drum and bass, where you need your kick and your snare to both be contributing to the low end, something like house, maybe your kick's doing the low end and your clap doesn't want to be fighting too much with that low end. So there's different ways and different techniques that you learn just by doing those separate genres that you wouldn't have learned another way. And the way that you can learn different genres is watch YouTube videos. I mean, that's something I do all the time. There are so many good teachers out there, and you can just learn so much quicker than you could even when I started out. You can learn from some of the best producers on the planet for absolutely no costs, and especially just seeing what they do in the computer and just learning by observation is an invaluable tool, because we as humans learn from observation. And if you observe someone doing something well, you get to know the little nitty-gritties of how they're doing that. So you don't need sort of one elder tutor that we would have done as humans for the entirety of history. If you want to learn to sew, you get someone who knows to sew to teach you, and you've got to find someone who knows how to sew. But these days, it's at our fingertips. So make use of the content that is out there. That's going to be able to elevate you to a level that is unprecedented in human history. So we are very, very lucky. So make use of it. Next, I would say is how to discern when something is good and when something isn't. And obviously that's subjective, but something like practicing changing out the samples in your song, being able to recognize when a kick isn't hitting hard enough, and you're able to pick that out and find a better one. And at the same time, if the chord progression isn't working with the vocal or a melody isn't strong enough, all comes from practice and from listening to a lot of music. You know, to be able to know when a song that you're working on just isn't good enough, or when a vocal isn't good enough, and being able to just park it and start something new, or change the vocal out, or change your melody. And part of that is actually being honest with yourself. When you spend hours putting time into something that you love, sometimes you've just got to be honest with yourself and say, this isn't good enough and I can do better. And sometimes just starting from scratch is much more beneficial than trying to polish a turd. I would always try and start simple, make sure that the foundations of the song are really strong. You know, they always say if a song sounds good with a vocal and a piano, then the song is good. Then all your production above and beyond that is just adding little bits of flair. And I think it's so easy to try and cover up a bad song with a lot of production. And it's something that we all do. I mean, still to this day, I'm in the habit of doing that. You know, I think as a producer, you feel like you can fix everything with production. And in some cases, that's true. But most cases, if you want really good songs, they need to be good from the foundation. The vocal has to be amazing, first and foremost. And then your harmonic structure behind that, your chords and your melodies. And then once you got that, then you build from there. And I think it's easy to waste time on a vocal that's not very good. It's easy to fall into the trap of working on an average song and trying to spice it up, when I think it's much better for your time to get those foundations really, really strong. And then it makes it easier to produce, because when you know the song is strong, then everything just falls into place. You almost don't have to think about it. It's like the song knows what it wants, and you're just a sort of conduit to making that final version realize itself. And I find if I'm struggling with the song, it tends to mean that it's not strong enough. Most of the time, the best songs are the ones that just are easy to do. And it's not always the case. You know, you can really struggle with parts of the production, and it's not always easy, of course. But if I'm really, really pedaling, I would consider starting from scratch. And most of the time, I think that's a good ethos to live by, because you can waste a lot of time working on average tunes. And that's not what we want. We want to be killers out here. We want to make amazing songs. Let's make sure the song is good. You know, if you look back at the 60s, some of the production was just non-existent. but it didn't matter because the songs are just so strong and they still live up even to this day. So the production isn't the thing that's going to make a song timeless. It's the actual writing of the song. And like we said at the beginning, that kind of comes back to listening to references and being able to compare the quality of your song to the quality of other people's songs, particularly songs that you like, is a skill that you develop over the years, but it's an important one. And actually, in some ways, it's the easiest one, because if you're honest with yourself and you're able to get out of your own head and think, even though I like this because I've made it, does it mean that other people will listen to it? You know, it has to have something that is emotionally engaging to people, whether that's the production, whether that's the writing, whether that's the lyrics. There's got to be an emotional engagement to the audience. And if your song doesn't give you any emotional feeling, then it probably isn't going to give someone else that feeling. So I would always say, chase the songs that make you feel something when you're making them, because that means it's going to make other people feel something. If you trust your own gut and if you follow your own instincts, almost all of the time, that is going to set you on the right path. And in terms of references, again, and I've said this quite a few times, but while you're making the songs, always have a reference in your project. You know how loud the kick is. You know how loud it is in compared to the bass. You know how loud your hats are in compared to those two. You know how loud the vocal is. You can hear where it's sitting in the frequency spectrum. Just having those references means that you're just not producing blind. If you're not using references, you can listen to it back in comparison to a reference afterwards, and just the levels are all over the shop. So having that North Star to aim to, having that balance to aim to, is something that will mean that you're in good stead from the very start of when you're working on a song. You're never going down a path blindly, and then you sort of realise, retrospectively, I've done this too loud, or these samples aren't strong enough, or whatever it is. It's always better from the start to know exactly where you're aiming for. And you know, if you have producers that you're looking up to, you know, this is my end game. This is what I want my songs to sound like. This is the level and the quality that I want to get to. It's just going to help push you. It's inspiring as well, because you know this is what it could sound like. This is the possibility. And it's only the gap between where you are now and there is just time and work and the passion that you put into it. So I know this has been a different one. These are definitely things that have helped me in the overarching career of being a producer. And I think they're really important. As I said earlier, they're easy things to do, but it's easier not to do them. To make a conscious effort to do these things, even though they can seem insubstantial sometimes, I think when you stack them together and you make it a practice, it will definitely stand you in good stead. So, thank you for watching, and I do hope this has helped. Love to your mothers.